Welcome everyone to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday, where we will discuss about the apartment deal that our guests have closed in the past. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified whenever a new episode is released. So our guest for today is Jeffrey Holst. So Jeffrey is a recovering attorney, a full-time real estate investor with more than 300 residential units and several commercial properties. He is a co-host of the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show where they mix bourbon, old fashioned, and real estate investing. In February, Jeff climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and stood at the highest point in Africa. He is also the co-host and founder of the Last Life Ever podcast and is passionate about helping people live the best possible version of their last life ever. So here's the episode. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday, where we will discuss all about your first GP multifamily transaction or one of the early deals that you're an active operator. Thank you for joining us here in the show.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, let's start with, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a multifamily investor, obviously, or I wouldn't be on the show. But I do some syndication. I do most of my stuff as joint ventures, though. My preference is towards B and C class, like middle-sized deals, like 20 to 50 units. That's sort of what I target right now. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I've been doing multifamily since 2017. Before that, I did some single family stuff. I'm a recovering attorney. That's what I always tell everyone. I started out practicing law, in my mid-20s, and I did that for about 5 years. And I was actually diagnosed with leukemia, ended up bankrupt. And I thought, I got to do something different. I just got to get a job with good insurance and figure this stuff out. And then once I did that, I started investing in real estate. I just said, I need to make sure if something happens to me, there's money for my family.
And yeah. At least that's a good thing that you already surpassed, hopefully, like or on that leukemia.
Yeah, no, it's been that was 2008, so it's 12 years now. And it's worked out really well for me in a lot of ways because it forced me to get started on investing and a good time. I started investing 2010, 2011. The market was really, really cheap at that point. And it wasn't because I was super smart. It was just because I had good timing with my sickness, and I've gotten to the point now where I don't really have to have a full-time job. I just invest in real estate for a living, and it's a pretty good way to live your life. It gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
This year, I took an entire month off and went to Africa. I'm glad I did that in February because if I had taken it a month of March off, I probably would have been stuck home that whole month. But I traveled Africa last year. I went to China and to Puerto Rico and on a cruise, and even this year I've been able to I went out to Yellowstone this summer. I went to Vegas a few weeks ago. Having the flexibility to do that kind of traveling is really, really great.
Yeah. Then how did you end up in multifamily?
Well, after I quit working, so I started with single families and small multis like duplexes and stuff. I quit working 2017 because the company I worked for was being sold and I didn't want to go work for a giant company. And I just said, I got to figure something out that has more long-term potential because the stuff I had, it would have been hard to keep scaling. We had about 50 units at that point. And so I just kind of narrowed in on, I need to either do commercial or I need to do multifamily. And the numbers just work really well with multifamily. It made sense to me. I was already managing other units. So getting into small multis, and my first one was a 12 unit. So it was not significantly different in a lot of ways than having a couple of duplexes on the same street. So
yeah. So any limiting belief that you have, and how were you able to overcome it to get to your first apartment deal?
Well, I'll tell you, listen, this is the thing about real estate in general, is the first thing you do is always hardest. Anytime you grow from one segment to another, first time you buy a house is hard. First time you buy an apartment complex is hard. It's scary. You start looking at these loans that are, and my first one was a $500,000 loan. So it seems small to me now, but at the time that seemed like a huge amount of money to borrow on one property. And so the limiting belief really was just like, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. I'm not sure this is a good idea. I don't know if I know enough. And how I got over it is I just read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot of books. Shows like yours, Jeff, they weren't as common when I started as they are now, but I'm telling you, they're the things like the Bigger Pockets podcast, things like there's a book, it's called Crushing It in Commercial and Multifamily or something like that by Brian Murray. That's a fantastic book. That really helped me. And then the mindset stuff too. I mean, just reading things like Rich Dad Poor Dad and recognizing that, you can really create passive income really helped.
Yeah, I remember like the first investment book that I read was also that Rich Dad Poor Dad. Then I was reading also I think Multifamily Millions by David Lindell. So
oh yeah, that's a good one too, Lindell's. But I keep Rich Dad Poor Dad right here. I actually buy these, like they go on sale every once in a while on Amazon. I'll buy like 10 copies and I give them away because I think that that's a book that even if you don't want to get involved in real estate, like the mindset part of that is fantastic. Just understanding the difference between an asset and liability can change your life.
correct. Yeah, and which side you want to be, like on the business side or in the employee.
I mean, this cash flow quadrant, his second book really breaks into that, the four places: business or investor or, self-employed or employee. And I mean, obviously, the B and I side of that quadrant stuff is a lot, for long-term wealth generation, for quality of life. They're just significantly better than the other side where you stop trading time for money.
Yep. So let's jump to your first deal in multifamily. What's the source of the deal?
So I actually found it on LoopNet. I don't really find stuff on LoopNet now. Like I said, it was a 12-unit apartment complex in North Georgia. I live in Chattanooga, so it was only like 25 minutes from me. So that was a big thing for me. I wanted it to be something I could be a little hands-on and actually see what was going on. So I was trying to learn about multifamily at that time. And I also liked that it was small, right? It was a deal that was something that if I messed it up a little bit, it wasn't going to crush me. We didn't have at that point, almost all of our properties were free and clear. So the idea of going and buying I think it was $635,000. Going and buying something for $600,000 was scary, but it wasn't like, okay, we're done. Like if this goes bad, we're never going to recover from it. So.
Okay. Yeah. Which part of the North Georgia is this? Like what city?
It's in Ringgold. So it's like off of I-75 north of Atlanta.
Okay.
It's like 15 minutes south of Chattanooga on I-75.
Oh, very nice. Then what class of property is this? B or C?
It's a B class, like middle B. It's a solid B class property, and it's a B class neighborhood as well.
Okay. Then what's the story of the seller on this property?
Yeah, so this is interesting. The seller was getting ready to retire. He had I think he had like 12 duplexes and he had this 12 unit. So he had about 24, well, I guess 6 duplexes and a 12 unit. So he had about 24 units. And he had in his head that because he was retiring from his career, that he wanted to have only paid off real estate. So he actually was looking at selling either his duplexes or the 12 unit and decided to sell the 12 unit and use the proceeds from that to pay off the duplexes. He had it for 15 or so years at that point. Really hadn't done much in the way of renovations or upgrades, but it was in good shape. I mean, everything was functional, but the HVAC was old, the paint and carpeting and stuff like that could be replaced. I mean, there was definitely cosmetic stuff, but there was nothing super terrible going on with the property.
Okay. Yeah, then for this 12 unit, how is the T12 and rent roll? Anything that stands out?
Yeah, so we didn't really have a full T12 because the guy really didn't, I mean, he was not a very sophisticated owner. So what we had was like, we had a broker projection, right? So like a pro forma, but it was a residential broker that had listed it. And so the numbers weren't all that useful. So I had to make a lot of assumptions. But I knew, I could do things like check the taxes, and we got the utility bills and figured out what those actually were. What the lawn care costs were and stuff. So we kind of created our own T12 in the due diligence process. And I was off a little bit, but my NOI, I think at that point, I thought it was going to be around $54,000. And what it really ended up being when I really dug into it was probably more like 48 or something. So there was a difference that, meant that I ended up probably overpaying a little bit just because I didn't know what I didn't know at the time.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good point also. Like for our listeners too, like you typically like multifamily, you will only think, okay, you can get it from commercial brokers, right? But sometimes there is like you probably want to network with some of the residential brokers because you never know. Like people, yeah.
Yeah, actually, you really want a residential broker network if you can, because what happens is most of those residential brokers don't know anyone that buys multifamily. And so if they happen to run into a multifamily, they call up me and they say, hey, Jeff, like, I have this property maybe coming on board. Like, what do you think it's worth? Like, how much could you pay for it? And you end up getting this stuff sort of off market. It doesn't happen
Yeah.
very often, but I'd say like once or twice a year, someone will come to me with a deal like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
and every once in a while, we were able to snap one up. We picked one up. We picked one up last year that way. I mean, it's only been 2 or 3, in the last 3 years that we've really been able to grab. But they're not going to run into the 150 unit buildings, the 300 unit buildings, though. They're going to run into one of their regular investor clients might have a bunch of single families and duplexes and has 110 unit or 120 unit. And that's the stuff they run into.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Then for this property, what was the original asking price?
It was like 675 or something. We really didn't talk them down that far. I don't, it might have been 665. It was somewhere in that range. We got about 30 to $40,000 off at the time. And the broker kind of, because I didn't really know what I was doing, I think he kind of played me a little bit. He said to me, oh, we have all this interest, and the seller's saying he's just going to sell his duplexes if he doesn't get his price. He had all these things, and I was like, whoa, I really like this deal. I really want the deal. So I ended up not really pushing very hard. And then later I found out, because I met the person that had been managing the property was actually the son-in-law of the owner. I met him, and I've utilized him for a few years now as one of my main maintenance people, both at this property and other properties I have around. And he told me later, after we got to know each other, there was no other interest. There was no, it wasn't like that at all. In fact, the listing was about to expire, and the broker was desperate to make the deal because he was about to lose the deal. And so, well, the lesson learned, and it's probably not a broker I'm going to trust again. Right? So
Yeah.
it is what it is, though. You learn, you live and learn, and it's worked out really well. So I can't even really complain. The market's very strong the last few years. We've been able to raise rents and stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. So you get it like around the 630 something or
635, I'm pretty sure was the price. Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, how's the economic occupancy for the property?
Yeah, so it was full at the time. It's 100% occupied and everyone was paying. But it had some legacy tenants in that had been in for a long time. So our average rents were $614 at the time. And now we're north of 900 3 years later. So it's a pretty significant difference. The high rents at that point were about 750, but the problem was that there were 2 tenants that were in the low 500s that had been there for like 10 or 12 years. And the guy was just sort of like, well, I'm not raising their rent. I don't want them to move out because I'll have to renovate their units because they've been in there for 10 years. And that's super short-sighted, by the way. Like you lose out on a lot of opportunity just moving those 2 tenants out and moving them to 750. A couple $100 a month, call it $500 a month, an extra NOI, $6,000 a year at a, I guess I bought that if it was 635. So I was probably about a 7.5, 8 cap market at the time. that extra $6,000 a year, it adds $50,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might have spent 20,000 renovating, but you would have gotten $50,000 in extra equity.
Yep. Yeah. How were you able to have them move out eventually?
Yeah. So what we did is so I bought it in the fall. It was in October. And so I actually took the guy who was managing it and I said, listen, this is my first multifamily. I'm excited about it. I have some ideas of stuff I want to do. If someone moves out, we're going to renovate, we're going to raise rents, and we're going to try to get the rents up. But I don't want to kick anyone out before the holidays. I don't really want to move people out that have children during the school year, because it was one of the things I liked about this property was it was in a really good school district, which is attractive to people that live there. And I said, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly move up rents over the next 6 months. As people move out, and as their leases come up, we're gonna say, hey, rents are going up. And that's what we did. And in fact, one of those people that had rent, her rent was $500 when I took it over. She's renting from us now. She pays $795. And we haven't ever been in. I mean, I've never been in her unit. Now the maintenance guy's been in there a couple times for little minor stuff, but and he says it's in good shape, but I haven't even seen it. I didn't even. That's another thing I did wrong when I bought it. I didn't even inspect all the units because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yep. Then yeah, for this one, how did you find? I mean, what's the finance breakdown on this?
Yeah, so we just went with a conventional bank loan with a portfolio lender, like a regional bank. And it was an 80% loan to value. So we put 20% down on it. And I just gotten a severance package and I didn't have quite enough money in cash. So I partnered with my dad on it and he put up the rest of the money. We just split it.
Okay. Then do you have like a CapEx budget on renovating this?
Well, we should have. We didn't. We've renovated it out of cash flows now because we've raised the rents, and like I said, the average rents are close. They're just over 900 now. That adds. I guess what is that? 300 times 12. So I mean, it adds $4,000 a month in extra income, and we've utilized that income from rents to do a lot of the CapEx. And then last year we actually refinanced, pulled out more than our original down payment, and then we took some of that money and did the last stuff like windows and the parking lot needed some maintenance and stuff. So we actually have gotten it pretty much done now, except for that one unit that the lady is still there, and every time I raise her rent she stays.
Okay.
But I think I'll this year I think it's probably I'm gonna have to raise the rent so much that she moves out. Like, I'm not gonna be mean. I'm just gonna be like, hey, just so you know, your rent's gonna go up another $200, and she'll probably move out at that point. But if she doesn't, then I guess I won't renovate, and I'll just keep. I'll just take the extra $200. Yeah.
Yep. Then yeah. So what was the interest, if you recall, on that?
Yeah. So the original interest was like 5.09%, and it was a 20-year amortization. And I think it's a variable, so it had an arm on it. Like I think it was fixed for 5, and then it reset every 5 to an interest rate that was a certain amount above prime. We since refinanced, right? So now our rate is like 3.9, I think 3.94 or something like that. And because of the refinance and the re-amortization, even taking out the down payment amount plus a little bit, we actually had our payment only go up about $15.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
Yeah.
And that was in January. And to be honest, the market's stronger now than it was then. And we've raised rents a little bit more since then. I'm like half tempted to refinance again because rates have come down again and values have gone up a little bit more. And I'm like, yeah, I could get another $50,000 out and have the payment stay the same or go down a little bit. And so that's really tempting. But the reality is there's cost to refinancing, so you don't want to do it too often.
Correct. Yeah, we have the points and stuff. As long as your points is covered by the with the value probably.
Yeah, I mean, well, you've got the points. I mean, probably wouldn't have a lot of points on that, maybe a half a point or something.
Yeah.
And probably only on the new money too, because I'd keep it at the same bank. So it probably wouldn't be very expensive from that, but you have to have a new appraisal. So I mean, you talk about $6,000 or $7,000 probably by the time it was done. And that's not a ton of money, but But you know, if you're only saving a half a point on, and that would be like $700,000, it'd still take a couple of years just to get that $6,000 back in
Yeah. Yep.
savings. And you know, you might want to refinance again before that if the market stays the way it is. So I
Yeah.
think we're gonna stay put for a little while and see. You know, you
See what
want to.
happens.
I always say 3 to 5 years is when you want to start looking at refinances.
Mhm. Okay. Then yeah, for the loan term on this, like how long is the term that you have with the bank?
It's a 20-year term.
20-year terms also.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, that we get 25 with some of our stuff now, and of course, if you get into the non-recourse stuff, you can get 30 or even more. But for these smaller loans, it's pretty hard to get above 25.
Okay. Okay. Then I think this property, so you just bought it like yourself. There's no partner, or at least
Yeah,
JV.
my dad,
Your
and
dad, yeah.
that's it. Yeah, and my dad is yeah, he's retired and he had some money. He doesn't really pay that much attention to it. He lets me run it however I want. So effectively, it's my own baby. I get to do what I want with it. So
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
as
At least
long
you
as
can
I
also
give him his money, he's happy, right? Like
yeah, and
just
also
keep
you
paying
can
him every month. He's okay.
yeah, you can multiply his money too. Yeah, that's cool. Yep. Then so this yeah, what's the business plan when you bought it? Just to, I guess, cash flow.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly like I always, there's four ways you make money in real estate. You get a tax advantage, you get the cash flow, the amortization, and appreciation. And I kind of looked at it and went, with leverage, this thing's going to pay off $1,500 a month on the note. It's going to cash flow $1,500 a month, and so that was like $36,000 a year. And my original plan was $36,000 a year on $150,000 down payment was a pretty good return. It was close to 20%. I felt like that was pretty good. You know, it'd be like a 12 or 13% cash on cash return. Once the rents got up, we ended up with even better than that. So I felt really good about just cash flowing it. But now I look at it and go, you know, the real value to this stuff is the forced appreciation. Raising the
Mhm.
rents $300 on average, you know, that adds a huge amount of money. I mean, the thing is probably worth around $1 million, and
Mhm.
you know, we only paid 630 for it 3 years ago. So that's, you know, $150,000 turns into 450,000 in 3 years. That's an incredible return.
Yes. Yep, yep. Then yeah, going to the next segment of the show, due diligence. Although not sure if you did any kind of due diligence on this property.
Well, so yeah, I mean, so I started out with, you know, I knew the market, so that helped. I thought the rents were a little bit low. And I did, you know, go to the property. I talked to the maintenance guy that was running it. And then I did look at all the utility bills. And I looked at the tax returns, but I didn't do nearly enough. Like we have a much more thorough process now than we did on this first one.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Then I guess we'll skip the capital raise. Then yeah, closing cost. I know this is just a bank. Like how much typical is the closing cost if you do it with the
Yeah, I
bank?
mean, we paid a half a point. So and that was on like a $500,000 loan. So like that was only $2,500 or something. And then there was a appraisal fee. And we did not need an environmental report for this one. So there were some title fees and stuff, but I would say the closing costs were right around $7,000, something like that.
Okay, yep. Then how long did it take from LOI or PSA to closing?
It was about 45 days, somewhere around there, maybe a little bit longer. Let's see, when did we put it under contract? So it might have been like midsummer and we closed in October. So about 2.5 months actually.
Okay,
So that's 75 days, I guess.
yep. Then yeah, we reached the last portion of the show where I ask every guest these final five sizzling questions.
All right.
So first question, any lessons learned that you want to share from the deal analysis, due diligence, financing, and closing?
Yeah, so the biggest lesson I can recommend to everyone is that you should just start doing it. Like multifamily is amazing and you can mess it up, but there's a huge amount of opportunity. So start out by you know, networking with people that are doing what you want to do and go out and do it. Partner with someone. I've had really good luck partnering with another friend of mine who has multifamily up in Michigan, and we've done really, really well with those. But I think if you just get out there and start looking for deals, and then be ready to go when you see the deal you're looking for.
Yeah. I think just take action.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, so Richard Branson has this book called I think it's called Screw It, Just Do It. And I was reading that at the time that I bought this first 12 unit, and actually the 19 unit we bought like in Michigan, like I don't know, a month later. So we actually bought two right in a row. So we went from 0 multifamily to 30 plus units in two different states in about a month. But both of those I was on the fence on both of them, and both have turned out amazingly well. And really, I remember having that conversation. I just said to my partner in Michigan, I said, "Screw it, let's just do it," because I've been reading that Richard Branson book. So I would say, thanks, Richard, if you're watching. Feel free to, have a toast on me or something.
Yep. So the second question is, any recommended books?
Well, obviously, I have to recommend Richard's book now, right? Since I just talked about it, and I've already said about Brian Murray's book and also Rich Dad Poor Dad. But I think Frank Gallinelli has a book called What Every Real Estate Investor Needs to Know About Cash Flow and 36 Other Key Metrics. That thing is amazing. It's chock full of examples of how to calculate various return mechanisms, how to figure out NOI, how to figure out your cash on cash return, how to figure out your internal rate of return, all this stuff that you hear about. And if you don't know those numbers cold, you're going to make a mistake, especially if you want to start raising money and you want to start syndicating. You definitely need to understand those numbers. I actually did a book review on my website, I guess it's on YouTube. It's on our Old Fashioned Real Estate YouTube page on that book too. So if people want to check that out, they can look at that as well.
Okay, that's cool. Then, the third question is, any recommended podcast or YouTube channel that you are listening to and would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I listened when I was first getting into real estate. I listened to a lot of Bigger Pocket stuff. And I mean, everyone I think that watches podcasts or listens to real estate shows have probably heard of that. But I think there's a lot of value there. But listen, there are so many good opportunities to get information now. And I've been on some really good ones. I like Vinny Chopra's show. He has 4 shows, but I like his apartment syndication show. I think that's really cool. He interviews a lot of really interesting people. So if you haven't heard of Vinny Chopra, I would look him up. But Rod Khleif's got a good show. The Real Estate Guys show is pretty good as well. So there's a lot of really good ones out there.
Okay, yeah. So all these books and podcasts that Jeff mentioned, so I'll put it also in the show notes, like exact link also to so that you can just click the link, then just go straight to the podcast. Yeah, then the fourth question, this is the time to promote yourself. What's your acquisition criteria for multifamily in terms of location, units?
Sure. We're a little bit eclectic. If it makes sense, we will look at it, right? But our main areas of operation are Chattanooga and the surrounding area. So like within an hour of Chattanooga, or in Metro Detroit. So, but not in the city of Detroit necessarily. We would consider Detroit properties, but we prefer Macomb County, Oakland County, which are the 2 counties immediately north and west of Detroit. So those areas are kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for value add deals, less than $10 million, more than $1 million. I mean, and beyond that, we're really, if it fits into our criteria, then we'll look at it. And if we can see an opportunity to add value, either by increasing the rents or decreasing expenses or doing some kind of renovation plan that's going to fix those things, then we're really interested in it. Particularly, like I said, if it's in our area. So like in Detroit, East Point, Roseville, those are really great for us, or Chattanooga, pretty much anywhere around here is fine too.
Okay, yeah. So for everyone who is listening, so if you have any leads in those areas, contact Jeff.
Yeah, and listen, I am more than happy to look at anything, and I'll partner with people if it makes sense, if the deal's right. And if they're a broker or something, I am a real estate agent, but I never try to fight people over commissions because I want deals. I don't want commissions.
Yes.
My agent license is really just for myself so that I can pick up a commission here or there, if a friend of mine needs something or whatever, but I don't advertise it. I don't really represent people or do listings or any of that stuff. So
Yep. So the last question is, what's the best way to contact you?
yeah, so there's really two ways. One is just to check out our show, the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show. This show, we drink bourbon old fashions, like the drink, and we just kind of get drunk and talk about real estate on YouTube. And so they can either comment on one of the videos or they can reach out to us through oldfashionedrealestate.com. But the other thing that they can do if they just want to get a hold of me is they can look at Last Life Ever. So Last Life Ever, like you only live once, but a little bit different because it's Last Life Ever. That's my other podcast and show. We have a Facebook group, a website, all that kind of stuff. The best way to get a hold of me personally is probably Instagram or Facebook, though, and I'm just Jeffrey Holst on both of those. So
Okay, very nice. Then I think that ends the final 5 sizzling questions. But I want you probably to give inspiration to everyone because your story is really like inspiring.
Sure.
From bankruptcy and also like all this cancer, sickness, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give, especially those people under foreclosure, especially during times like this in COVID?
Yeah,
What advice?
yeah, this is what Last Life Ever is really about. So I'm glad you asked that. So, two things. One, we only have one chance to live, and we have to live the best version of our life. This is something that getting sick and having cancer really beat into my head. I thought I was going to die, and I went, whoa, there's all this stuff I want to do, and I don't know if I'm going to get to do it. So now I live every day like I have to reach out and do the things that I want to do. So it's really important. Like, you don't want to have to wait until you're sick and dying or old and have regrets. You want to just go do those things. So if you want to get into multifamily, do that. But if you're not into real estate, it's fine. But whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that your goals are, you should pursue those. And you should pursue them like you only have one chance to do it, because you really do only have one chance to do it.
Okay.
And then the second thing, and I think this is really important too from a mindset perspective, is don't have bad days. I know that sounds weird to say, but it's a choice. Good and bad stuff happens to everyone every single day. I got diagnosed with leukemia. I didn't consider it a bad day. Now, some people will be like, that's a bad day. Okay, maybe. For you, it would have been then, if that's how you feel. But for me, I don't have bad days. I have bad minutes. I have bad things happen to me, but I'm always looking for the positive. I'm always looking for, what can I learn from this? What information am I getting from it? And what are the benefits of whatever I'm going through? And to be honest, especially in retrospect, getting leukemia and then being forced into bankruptcy, well, those were tough periods of time, are probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I can look back at it now and see very clearly that where I am now and the rather extraordinary things I've been able to do would never have happened if I hadn't been motivated by those sort of darker moments, right? And 25 years, I haven't had a bad day, and like, if I can do it, so can you. It's just not that hard.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that advice. So thank you, Jeff, for being a guest in this show.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Okay, all right, thanks.